Welcome to a special milestone edition of the Talent Intelligence Collective podcast, our first ever year-end wrap-up show. In this unique edition, I and my co-hosts Toby Culshaw and Alison Ettridge take a look back at what's been an eventful 2024 in the world generally, but also, more specifically, in the world of talent intelligence. In this episode, we reflect on our fantastic podcast guests and their diverse perspectives on talent intelligence, the continued growth and evolution of the TI community, significant moves and changes across the industry, what 2024 meant for each of us personally and professionally, our predictions for what 2025 might bring for talent intelligence and the broader business landscape, and we had a right old laugh. Whether you're a regular listener or new to the show, join us for this candid conversation as we celebrate the wins, discuss the challenges, and look ahead to what promises to be another fascinating year in talent intelligence. So get comfortable and join us for this special end-of-year reflection. And depending on when you're listening to this, whether it's just before the holidays, during the festive period, or in the new year, we hope you're either getting ready for a wonderful break, enjoying the festivities, or have kicked off 2025 in style. And if you're listening to this in 2030, we hope our AI overlords are treating you well and that the robot revolution wasn't as bad as we feared. Stay curious and stay intelligent, folks. Before we get on with the main event, I just wanted to remind you that this podcast is proudly sponsored by our friends at Stratigens. And here's a very well-spoken chap to tell you a little bit more about them.
Stratigens gives HR leaders the data they need to transform businesses with the speed and ease required in today's world. If you're ready to make decisions that aren't lengthy, costly, one-dimensional, or based on gut feeling, visit stratigens.com. That's stratigens.com to register for a Wednesday demo drop-in and find out more.
Hello and welcome to what will be our final episode of 2024 for the Talent Intelligence podcast. And we're doing something a bit different today. Our first ever year-end wrap-up show.
Yay!
Managed to squeeze it in. We've had a great year with some amazing guests, which we'll come on to a little bit later. We've seen the talent intelligence community grow. There's been some big industry news, a whole heap of stuff for us to chat about. And we're going to look back on those over the next half an hour or so. Half an hour or so. I'm not going to re-record that. I can't be bothered. It's the end of year show. And obviously highlights. I don't think there's been many lowlights. Interesting situations, certainly, that we'll chat about. And more importantly, as ever, I'm going to be joined for this introspective look at the year by my co-hosts Alison Ettridge of Lightcast and Toby Culshaw of Amazon. Hello, you two.
Hello.
How are we both?
I'm fine. I've got the giggles because when you said, I don't know where to put the yay in, and then we put the yay in, you said, this is our last show of the season. I thought you were going to put the yay in there.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yes. Yeah. Are we allowed to swear on this one? Or are we going to be grown up?
No, we're not allowed. Well, maybe little swearing.
No, we won't.
Like little swearing you might do in front of, normal children, not little children.
Normal children?
You know what I mean?
That's abnormal children. Well, this is a slippery slope to go down the first section of the show.
Ones that are unlikely to sit in the supermarket repeating what you say over and over and over again in a embarrassing way.
Do you mean kind of children of a certain age, then?
Yes, that was what I meant.
Right, okay. Rather than children who behave oddly and repeat things endlessly over and over.
Obviously, all small children are also normal.
Yes, for the record.
Before I get into trouble.
The perspective of the Talent Intelligence podcast is that all children are normal in their own unique way.
Yeah, see, you're worried about so and so. I'm talking about not normal children. Here we go.
2 minutes in, Alison's desperately trying to dig herself out of a hole.
I am well and truly in it.
Now, this is the stuff that we've said all year long we should be recording and putting out there, and we actually are now, so it's good.
Yeah,
a good way to start the wrap-up.
100%.
Not sure this is going to carry on to 2025.
A good way for you to cement your career with your new employer.
You just said that. Thanks for that.
So where should we start?
don't know, just quickly.
Just move on to anything fast.
Move on. How about, well, why don't we talk about the podcast we've done? That might be a good start, considering this is a podcast, and we're here to talk about the podcast. I think that'd be great. We had 5 guests this year.
That wasn't very good, was it? Why do we only have 5? I think it was my fault and Dave's fault for trying to die.
Yeah, that'll be it. For those that don't know, Alison's husband is called Dave, and he tried to die this year.
He did fail, so that's why I can talk about it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he survived.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think that might be why.
Yeah, that might have had an impact. And there was some other stuff that happened as well, wasn't there, which we'll come on to later. But even though we only had 5 guests, we had 5 cracking guests, of course. Yeah. So from some great companies, from places like Volvo, Novartis, EY, etc., etc. Any highlights for you guys?
I've got highlights on all of them, I think.
Yeah.
I loved Megan. Megan was really cool because she's just such an interesting person, actually. You kind of almost forget the TI bit. She's just such an interesting person. So she'd done loads of research work and work with women in Pakistan, hadn't she? As a kind of, and I just thought I could listen to her talking about her background, just 1,000 times. It was so interesting and kind of some of the fundamentals that drive her. And her passion for fundraising and her passion for democracy and her passion for research. And then we sort of talked about TI and TA, which she's brilliant at, but it was just, I was more interested in the first bit, really.
Yeah, she was fascinating. Like, a really interesting career history as well, bringing kind of how she got to being a TI leader at Volvo was just as you say, I could have sat and listened to her for hours, never mind the kind of 1 hour we had put aside. It was great.
And actually then, sorry, T, you're going to have to talk, Toby, on this one. You are definitely going to have to talk.
I'm just letting you guys get it out. Just get it all out there.
No, well, I can't. I'm all excited now. Because I remember, she's at Volvo Cars, and I remember Megan talking particularly about manufacturing and the passion that she had for manufacturing and how it I was going to say it changed my opinion a bit, but that sounds a bit. But her passion for it really did change my opinion because she was just talking about how cutting edge it all was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
I think she didn't realise before she joined Volvo how interesting it would be and how diverse it would be, did she? And she obviously grew into the role and grew into the organisation. I think she's been there for quite a while now, kind of 4 or 5 years, if I remember correctly. But before that, she hadn't had much exposure to the world of manufacturing. So, yeah, she was blown away, as we were. And she spoke so eloquently about it and brought it alive and made it sound interesting to us as well.
I think that's, for me, though, that's the beauty of talent intelligence, which is, I know I'm an incredible geek and bring it back again, but I think because every company lives or dies by its people and the access to talent and the competitor landscape it sits within, etc., it means that whatever industry, whatever field, whatever company, I think you can find real passion and almost like sell it to yourself. It's the same as a saucer. You'd sell it to yourself before you sell it to the candidate. And I find the same with TI. Like, once you get under the hood, I think every industry and every company is fascinating because it's all got its unique problems and its unique situation and its unique history that lives for its people. So I don't know. I think every industry and every company has got its own way of selling itself to you.
I think that's true. I think she was. What was also interesting about the stuff that Megan did was that she was also having to do. And forgive me for this description, so I can't think of a better one, but kind of like scrappy TI. So she'd pulled in a load of masters in data science because, she didn't have the team that she wanted at the time. And so there was lots of, kind of bringing in, different pieces and kind of scrappiness. That's the wrong way of putting it. But do you know what I mean? It was just like, there's not a big team of TI people. It was, how do we draw in the expertise that we need?
I think it was surprisingly small, wasn't it, for an organisation of that size? Wasn't she TI for a while? Literally, Megan was TI.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Slowly built out the function.
Yeah.
But that's the case, I think, with most TI teams. So I know I didn't do the survey this year because the same reason we were busy. We didn't get enough pods in. I just didn't get around to doing the benchmarking survey. But when I look back at the data over the last few years, the vast majority of TI teams are sub 5 people.
Yeah.
And within that, the vast majority anecdotally, I think are probably sub 3. It's a person, maybe a person with an intern or a person with an analyst, or, it's very, very small teams. And I know we're going to talk kind of more about the macro context and what we've seen over the last year and stuff, but I think I think a lot are still struggling at that piece. And that was one of the key themes that came out of the Talent Intel conference in Amsterdam, which I know once again we're going to talk about later. But it was the fact that people were really busy, lots of work, lots of projects, lots of impact, lots of strategic tie-in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they were just burning from a capacity perspective. And they were really struggling to get the resources they need to get what they needed out the door. And I think that's reflective of the larger macro environment, which we can talk about. But I don't think she's alone. I think the vast majority of TI teams are still that sub 5 people, especially when you're not doing the sourcing stuff. Like, there's a few bigger TI teams out there that had sourcing teams tied into it, and they were TI / SI, I'd call it. But once you look at the kind of the core TI teams, I think most of them are very small.
Yeah, I agree. And then we had Martin. Oh, he was brilliant. I loved what he was talking about. So if anybody who hasn't listened, so Martin at the time was at Novartis. He's now set up his own business on workforce intelligence, which is very cool. But that whole capture of your entire external workforce, including all your entire workforce, I just think is really interesting. So he was capturing data on contractors and gig workers, and comparing that to all of the different data and loads of different internal systems, and then comparing it to external data, and whether or not that matched what you were saying. And all about risk. Do you remember? It was all about. He was looking at it all about risk.
He was also looking at another type of worker, wasn't he? This is where he was bringing AI in as the generative AI as an additional worker into the mix. Like, what percentage of these roles can be performed now by AI of some form, whether it's Gen AI or other? And again, obviously, me as the uber geek on all things tech, especially AI, my eyes really kind of lit up and my ears pricked up at that. It was really, really interesting that was being considered as part of the worker mix, not just like your traditional bodies, but also how technology can do some of the heavy lifting.
I think for me, it's and obviously I work with Martin at Philips as well. I think his is probably one of the most underserved but commercially impactful areas of whether it's TI or workforce planning or total workforce management, whatever you want to call it, where I think it's probably got the biggest direct commercial impact that you can operationally see a real clear line of sight. You do X, you get Y. Everything else we do within TI, a lot of what we do within TI, there are so many variables and parameters. So if you're doing a location strategy with a goal to reduce the headcount cost by £1 million or whatever, you can do that. But there's always going to be other compounded effects around, whether it's tax breaks, whether it's real estate costs, whether it's whatever, higher attrition rates, blah, blah, blah. There's always other parameters and variables. Whereas I think Martin's work, you can look at and go, you can really clearly see the reduced risk exposure, but also that impact on the bottom line really, really clean. And in a way that obviously comes from procurement. So in a way that procurement, and he gets real time with finance, and finance really buy into and understand. So I'm a big fan of that work. I think it's a really interesting angle to hit this whole space, and I don't think enough companies are doing it.
I agree. And I think if you're an HR business partner or a chief people officer or a chief risk officer, and you've happened across this pod, that's the one to listen to if you've kind of got that really broader role, because it's just a completely different view on how you should be looking at your people and whether they are real or digital. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed that one.
I like Martin because, again, like Megan, he was somebody with an interesting career background. You wouldn't necessarily look at it and think that's a straight line to talent intelligence.
No.
It's kind of a weaving route to a certain degree. I think he spent 10 years as a kind of field engineer in something to do with IT or something like that before moving into anything even remotely talent related. So
he was in the army as well, wasn't he?
And in the army, yeah.
That's
and a nice bloke, just a really genuinely nice bloke.
Oh, for sure. But your point there around the kind of the different journeys, I think that's what I like when I look across the episodes overall. And yes, we haven't done enough. Yes, we want to do more. But put that aside. If you look at each of like Megan, Martin, Patrick, Lou, Chris, that they're all very, very different backgrounds, very different roles that they're doing, very different types of companies. And that variety, I think, is fascinating because it shows that whether it's talent intelligence or SWP, we're all kind of bouncing around the same Venn diagram of life, and we're all kind of the variety within it is wild. Like you can, and that's what really excited me was you got the industry variation and variety, you've got the size of organization variety, and you've got the actual role dynamic variety as well. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is, and I know we're kind of, I'm slightly mindful of time. Patrick was really cool because he was talking about how to make HR more data savvy, right? And really how to tie evidence-based HR into people analytics. That was really cool. So again, that's another one that if you're in the broader spectrum, you should probably listen to. And then Lou's, we've had really great feedback on Lou, who was just lovely.
Yeah, she was great, and again, right towards the end of the bit when because I enjoy the whole content, but when it gets deep into TI stuff, I sometimes feel a little bit out of my depth. But whenever it comes back to technology, again, the old ears prick up, and she spoke about her talent intelligence gathering tool. I can't remember what she called it, Toby. Can you? But it was really interesting about gathering that qualitative information from almost every interview and every interaction with a candidate. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it's a subject that we've spoken about tons, and I think I put a chunk of it in the book. I can't have a podcast without mentioning the book somewhere. So go out and buy my book. I need to buy Christmas presents.
You need to write number 2, don't you?
Oh no, never again. It's too much hard work. Yeah. But I probably do need to do a refresh of it. And genuinely, I do need to do a refresh because the world has changed so much since I wrote that. But yeah, in the book, I talk about kind of these listening tools and the fact we need these mechanisms as TI and as recruiters and sources. And it's something that we've been screaming out for. And I find it fascinating that on the ground, we've been screaming out for this stuff for years, literally years. And yet the TA tech landscape just hasn't evolved. It hasn't brought it along at all. So for me, it's exciting when I see teams that are scrappy and go, do you know what? We're not going to wait for our ATS or CRM or whoever to catch up. We're just going to make something. We're going to build something. Yeah. We're going to get this mechanism going. And I think that's wonderful. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought Lou was, so again, anyone who's a kind of a practitioner or just setting up a function, the one with Lou was just really practical tips. This is what you do. This is a great way to do it. If you haven't got much money, do it this way. If you've got more money, do it this way. I just thought it was really interesting on how to build a TI function from scratch and how to gather the qualitative stuff as well.
Absolutely. So were there any kind of key themes that we saw across all of our guests? Does anything kind of pop up? You guys are probably better at spotting those than I am.
Definitely a piece around, and this came out of Megan's and Patrick's and mine. In fact, it came out of everybody's. Oh, we should talk about the fact we're not talking about Chris Rowe just because he hasn't been released yet. So
yeah. He would say weirdly, we've just recorded him. He'll be released in the next couple of days, and it will be out before this is out. So it feels like a bit of time travel.
There's a bit. But Chris, it's not that we didn't love you. We did. It's just we don't talk about what you said. Otherwise, nobody will listen to it. Key thing for me was across all of them was the increased integration of internal and external data. And people really beginning to say, actually, that's when magic happens if we can start to look at our internal world and then provide the context of the external world. So I think that's an underlying theme that we've talked about for about 3 years, but is definitely growing in momentum and will do through 25, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that also calls out a bigger industry trend. I know I'm skipping ahead, but I think it calls out a bigger industry trend around that standardized taxonomy type piece.
Yep.
And saying to do that, to have that internal and external that married together and it's all seamless, you need to put a flag in the ground and say, this is the taxonomy we're going to work with. This is how it's going to work. And I think there's almost not to say a battleground sounds a bit grandiose, and I don't like using war cliches and all that, but you're getting this situation, particularly with skills-based hiring, kicking through as an industry trend, where you're having that conversation of, do we have a standardized taxonomy? Do we have a custom taxonomy? Do we have something that's integrated into our product suite? Do we have something standalone? And I think in Amazon, we talk about one-way and two-way door decisions. One-way door being something you can't come back from. Two-way door being you can come back from this decision. It's not it's not a forever choice. And I think quite a few of these are going to be some fairly major decisions. They might not necessarily be one-way doors, but there are some really pretty major decisions, because however you decide to move ahead will fundamentally affect how you do talent management, how you do talent acquisition. It will be integrated into all your HR, HCM suite. There are some big decisions here, and I think it's going to be interesting to see which way the market goes.
Yeah, I agree. And then because they're big decisions.
How much is that, Toby? How much is that powered by technology vendors, as in even giving people a choice, versus the decision being made by the TI teams themselves?
I think that it's probably a bit of both, in that the vendors will probably have a direction that they philosophically believe is the right direction. And then it will come down to, I don't think it's even TI teams. I think it's broader. It's the HR teams, whether it's your HRIS leaders, whether it's your CHROs, whether it's a head of people analytics, whatever. I think it's the broader piece then of, how do we want to be as an organization? Do we need if you think about the 80-20 rule, I'm a firm believer that I think 80% of most organizations are the same. Most
I'd agree.
Software engineers, most finance, most corporate comms, whatever it is, 80% is probably pretty much the same. And that's being optimistic that there's 20 that's special.
I was going to say more like 90, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably closer to like 95.5 or 98.2. I think we're being wildly optimistic. There's even 20% variance. But it's, what is the weight on that variance? I think there probably will be some industries where you go, do you know what? We really need a specialized cut of this to see this super special surgeon or whatever. But then equally, the taxonomies are pretty granular nowadays. So I think it's almost a philosophical choice from the customer side and from the vendor perspective of where they see the future. But I think ultimately it'll probably be led the same way most things in TA are led by the vendor landscape. I think it probably will be led by the vendor landscape, because you can only build internally with the tools and resources you've got, unless you're incredibly scrappy or you have the resources to build your own, first party platforms. Like, you probably will be led to a degree by the vendor landscape. And that's what we see we discussed in the past around skills-based hiring, and how the whole agenda from that was really driven out of the vendor space. It wasn't driven from internal organizations. It was driven by the vendors partnering with a lot of government bodies and pan-government bodies. I think it'll probably be driven by the vendor side. But what's your take? You talk to more vendors than me every day. What's your take? Sorry, Alison.
Me?
Yeah.
I don't talk to a lot of TI vendors, if I'm honest.
Probably should.
I talk to a lot of HR and talent and the kind of broader talent acquisition vendors, and they're definitely pushing on the whole skills thing, without a doubt. But I think many of them, because it's new to them to a certain degree, aren't being particularly prescriptive. They're not coming at this with, we know best. It's we'll allow you to do whatever it is you want to do, rather than kind of guiding, perhaps, as much as they should, maybe. It's difficult to say, but it's interesting. I think this year we'll see an evolution of it. Certainly a lot of them are getting very excited about skills, and they're talking about it a lot in marketing collateral, how much they're actually acting as a true enabler or innovator or helping people manage this stuff, other than providing a platform. I don't know. But that's in my space, which heavily leans into HRIS and ATS and things like LMSs, rather than kind of pure play TI technology.
I think we'll come on to this a little bit when we talk about our new home a bit later. But for me, any data that talent intelligence uses that's on the labour market is really messy, right? It's really messy. It's really unstructured. It's in thousands of different places. And it costs big bucks to try and put that into a common language. And I think that there just comes a point where it's like, there's not necessarily a need to do it, because some of the vendors have done it, right? And and some are better than others. But actually, if you want to get to the strategic value of comparing your internal data and your external data, it kind of makes sense not to start again.
Yeah.
Whether you're an HR tech business or a corporate, it's like actually it's millions making sense of that messy data. So how do we find a better way to do it?
Yeah, makes sense. Anyhow, 2024 generally, podcast aside, been an interesting year, I think, for all three of us. Quickly around the table, what's your own personal highlight? Alison, why do you go first? What's been your biggie for 2024?
There's two real biggies for me, and they're no-brainers. So anybody who knows me well knows that Dave got knocked off a motorbike in June. Very nearly died and didn't. And my God, that was a resetting of perspectives for me. So that's a personal highlight, that I still have my husband and my family and everything is all together. And then linked to that in so many different ways is the fact that Lightcast acquired Stratigens, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But the personal perspective for me was a big change, I guess, in my thinking, which when you're a founder, it's very easy to get wrapped up in everything that is in front of you. Mm-hmm. So there you are. That was mine.
Toby?
How can I go after that? That sucks. Why couldn't I have gone first? And I could have said something.
It sucks. He's still here.
Yeah, you'll have to encourage. You're at the heart of a motorbike accident in 2025, so you've got something more exciting to talk about.
I recommend that one. No, I am equally very happy that Dave is around. That's a very important thing for all of our lives.
Would you like to share the message that you put on the card, Toby?
I think you'll be more eloquent. I feel rude saying it, if I'm going to be honest.
Toby sent a card. I can't quite remember what it said, but it's something like, "You must be really strong to put up with Alison." So, thank you for the card, T.
This is very true, and frankly, I stand by my words. I think for me, like highlight of the year, I think there's been some cool stuff, like with the events we spoke about. That was all. There's some great moments there, seeing the community and stuff. I think we've done some great stuff internally at work, which obviously I'm not allowed to talk about because of where I work. So
it makes for a really boring podcast. Like,
really boring podcast. Like, really good stuff. None of you can know about it. But I think there's been some really great stuff, like on a personal note of work. Just being able to get my team together and seeing my team. There's people I've worked with for many, many years, and we just haven't ever been able to see each other. So we had an offsite earlier this year. That was brilliant. Going over to America with my leadership team to see the guys out there, and went to Nashville, went to Seattle. So it was amazing to see those places. But honestly, I think the community and what I've seen across the community this year of people just trying to help each other. It's been a brutal year. Last year was brutal as well, like for TI. And when I look across TI and those that are looking and those that have been trying to find jobs, the way the community is pulled together across that, and that people helping out each other. Like I've got some really good friends in the community that are looking, and when they've found jobs, they've been flagging them up to others in the community, saying you'd be awesome for this, and they're putting others before themselves. And I think that community aspect has just gone from strength to strength. And for me, that's been a really brilliant to see. It's We did the TI Collective because we want that community piece, and that is the absolute core of it. So to see it continue and to flourish on that side has been brilliant to see.
Excellent.
What about you, Alan?
Me? Well, clearly it's the 5 times I got to spend an hour and a half with you guys chatting about talent intelligence throughout the year.
So full of rubbish.
But beyond that, actually still with a TI hat on, I think it's probably hosting the Talent Intelligence Conference in Amsterdam. I really enjoyed that. It was. I'd not been on stage for quite a while before then, and it was good to be involved in, and I think in front of an audience that was so engaged with the topic, and more importantly, in front of a bunch of folk who knew the topic inside out and was so smart on it as well. And the speakers were incredible. So we'll probably talk about the event a little bit later, but that was a highlight for me with a TI hat on. I think more broader, putting my co-founder of Udder hat on. It's how our business has grown. Now we've increased the team from, I think, what were we this time last year, about 10 people to 26 people through 2024. We've got folk now as far west as Buenos Aires and as far east as Singapore. So that's quite exciting. And we survived 2024, which was an economically challenging year, shall we say, for many, many, many businesses, particularly those that are far older and in theory more stable than ours, because ours is still a relatively young business. But we got through, and we've really, I think, set ourselves up to have a really good 2025. So those are mine.
That's awesome. Very cool.
What about, you touched, Toby, on growth of the Talent Intelligence Collective. I think many listeners probably intersect with it in maybe a couple of different places, not necessarily all of the places. But I've seen, the collective grow. Your WhatsApp community has expanded massively in terms of its both depth and number of members and breadth in terms of different channels, etc. I thought that was quite cool throughout the year. That helped people understand better and where to engage and how to engage. And what else has excited you about the community?
Yeah, so the new sub-channels you mentioned, particularly on the WhatsApp group. So we see the vast majority of engagement on the WhatsApp group. Although it's not the biggest group, Facebook's bigger. It's got a couple of thousand people on there versus just shy of 1,000 on WhatsApp. But WhatsApp's by far the busiest engagement channel. So we created sub-channels there. So we've got the main Talent Intelligence Collective, but we've also got groups for people analytics and strategic workforce planning and compensation. And there's actually one for events as well. There's a few different sub-channels in there, which has been good because it means you can have more specialized conversation within. I think there's probably still space for more. I definitely see we impact geographically. So when APAC are online and pinging messages, you see a load of people from the US leaving the group. And when the US are online and pinging messages, you see a load of people from APAC leaving the group because obviously it's pinging them in the middle of the night and they're getting annoyed. So there's probably something we can do there around more compartmentalization. But at the same time, I do like the fact it's a true community and everyone can see everything. So that's been great. Across the year, we've had probably in total 100,000 engagements. So if you look at newsletters, we've got about 10,000 people the newsletter goes out to every month between the different channels.
10,000, really?
Yeah, it's about that. So you've got it's about 7,000 on the main LinkedIn newsletter, and then about 1,200 on the Substack. And then we've got the Intelligence Matters, which is kind of the deeper dive one-off thought pieces. That's about another 1,300. They're normally a repeat, though. So at that point, I also want to give a shout out. There's a few people, so there's about 20 people that subscribe to the Substack on a premium. So they sort of pay a token amount each month. That's where I kind of put a lot of the initial thought type pieces before they're eventually rolled out onto Intelligence Matters. But honestly, they've been fantastic. So without that subscription, without equally the people that kind of jump in and buy some Talent Intel Collective swag every so often, it makes a huge difference. It might not make it seem a huge difference for them. It's like a price of a coffee each month or whatever it is. But it makes a huge, huge difference when it's rolled together. So it's been great. The community is really growing. I think you definitely saw a drop off in sense of urgency because last year we saw and the year before we saw a huge increase because TI with the world was just skyrocketing and there was a rocket under it. And as the TI market cooled, you definitely saw a cooling of activity on say Facebook, for example. But overall, it's been a very busy year.
Excellent. What about the wider community? Obviously, you had two kind of major event things. I briefly touched on the Talent Intelligence Conference that happened in Amsterdam, but also you had your first year of having a stage at RecFest. That was quite cool.
Yeah, so it was officially a Talent Intelligence stage. It wasn't the Talent Intelligence Collective stage.
Yeah, but they're the same thing, Toby. Everybody knows Talent Intelligence Collective and Talent Intelligence are one and the same.
Next year, I might just get a sticker and slap it on the end of it, put collective at the end of it, just to hijack it. It was a great stage, honestly. So obviously the crowd isn't a core TI crowd. And I think that was the key difference between the two events for me was Amsterdam it feels like you're home. It's
hyper focused. Yeah,
exactly that. Hyper focused. Everyone's in a similar boat. Everyone's having the similar challenges. So you can be very open, and it's very deep, and you can get through some challenges, and kind of it's very much a peer-to-peer piece. Whereas RecFest was a totally different crowd, obviously a much broader talent acquisition crowd. Huge volume. So you've got, 5,500 people in the field. So it's a huge event. Brilliant event. I really do enjoy it. A huge amount of crowd churning through, but it's a different type of crowd. So it's a lot more education of what is talent intelligence. It did make me chuckle when people would occasionally come into a session and then be like, this is so far out my depth. And you just see them sort of looking around going, what am I doing here? How do I escape? I can't escape. But it was a brilliant event overall. It's a hell of an experience. I think if anyone's got any kind of team they want to get together and really get enthused about TA and the various aspects of it, because you've got everything from employer branding, recruitment marketing, talent acquisition analytics, talent intelligence, core TA. Like there's just so much going on. It's a wonderful event to really turbocharge your team and make them feel kind of alive and enthused about the industry. But what was your take? Because you're obviously at both events too.
Yeah, I am obviously a different stage at RecFest. Ours was more of a generalist TA one, which is where I'm very comfortable. I was just giggling to myself when you said about the RecFest attendees coming to your stage and feeling completely out of their depth. I was like, that's every podcast episode I host. So I get it, but I really, really enjoyed the conference in Amsterdam. I found as a stage host, making it a success is actually partly down to how good the audience is, and if the audience are smart, engaging, willing to ask questions, it makes your job as a host 10 times easier. If it's like pulling teeth and you're having to do all the heavy lifting, it's really, really tiring being a host and can be quite exhausting. But the event in Amsterdam, I didn't feel any of that at all. It felt like I just could literally throw the mic into the audience. As you know, we had one of those little square soft mics that you could just chuck to people. I managed not to injure anyone, if I remember correctly. And you knew there'd be somebody to catch it and ask really good questions. So yeah, I think if I had to lean towards one as a preference, I think that hyper-focused, very specialist event for me was the one that stood out.
I agree. I think that it's a different event in the fact that there's a real focus on networking and community and bringing it together. And we had a planning session actually last week on what 2025 could look like, and it was just really interesting to be thinking about the whole structure of getting people to engage with each other in a non-formal way. So yes, you've got the stage, yes, you've got breakout sessions, yes, you've got learning, but actually a lot of it is about just talking and connecting. And it's interesting because you're very humble, Alan. You know a whole lot more about talent intelligence than you let on. It's interesting hearing you say that you feel out of your depth because you talk about it in a way that means that you understand how it integrates and how important it is. But yeah, I love it. I think it was a great conference. I think the TIC, quite rightly should be doing a conference and doing it and partnering it with Young and his team and the intelligence group worked really well. Absolutely.
What about the wider world then? I touched on Udder's journey this year. I'm not going to kind of labour that, but I do want to hear more about what you touched on, Alison. You mentioned Stratigens acquisition right at the very, very beginning of the call. Talk to us about that. That's been a major shift for you.
It's been a major shift, yeah. So I'm no longer a founder. I've got a boss, which is new. Look, I think we have landed in completely and utterly the right place. So Stratigens acquired Lightcast in August of this year.
Do you want to just do that the other way around?
Oh, it wasn't that way around at all, sorry. Lightcast acquired Stratigens. Sorry, Lightcast.
Breaking news.
I can't even re-record that, but you know that bit about having a boss and all that sort of stuff, and I'm still not sure that's going to last very long. Stratigens acquisition by Lightcast, not Lightcast this year. I'm absolutely a major event. Without a doubt, we've landed in the right place. And I think we've landed in the right place for two reasons. The first is This is and I sound like I'm selling it, actually I'm not. I feel about this very genuinely as a founder, is that we've brought together the strengths of two businesses that were different. And so that plays to both of our strengths and therefore really helps to add value. So if you think about Lightcast being an organisation that really majored on postings and demand and government data and skills data, and then you think about Stratigens majoring on profiles and global data, and then think about the power of those things all coming together, skills and postings and profiles and companies, that's amazing. And then and I guess the second reason, this ties into what we were talking about earlier, which was the common language. We built Stratigens on the Lightcast skills and titles taxonomy because we knew it would get us to where we needed to be quicker. We built on top of it, and we used some clever machine learning and neural networks to enhance it. But it therefore has meant that the two things gel quite easily. And I really, really genuinely think that we are seeing this merging of people analytics and talent intelligence faster than any of us could have thought at the beginning of 2024. And in order for that to be powerful, I've talked all along, I talk about combine internal and external data and magic happens. That's what we can do. So we now can enable companies and governments and education establishments to say, how do we look at the data that we've got and the data that's out there to make some really sensible, smart, fast decisions?
Excellent. I'm not going to talk anymore about Udder.
Why?
Because I feel like I've done it to death.
You haven't. You've done a little tiny bit. What's the sort of stuff you're working on?
What's the stuff we're working on? I think beginning of this year, our primary focus was implementation. So people had bought some tech, we'd help them implement it. That was where a lot of our time and effort and revenues were coming from. This year has been about, I guess, broadening our services more formally into the kind of what we refer to as front-end consulting. So more strategic consulting, helping HR leaders make decisions about technology and process, and even to a certain degree, we're starting to get pulled into things like organizational design and stuff like that as well. So this has been about building out this year has been about building out our capability in that area, rather than it being something that had to be primarily done by myself or my co-founder or kind of begging and borrowing resources from elsewhere. We formally launched the front-end consulting division, headed up by Louise, who joined us, who's an ex-managing consultant at Accenture. So we brought in some real capability there. So that's been great. We've kind of set ourselves up to launch 3 fairly major products next year. One is we've built out our own HR digital maturity index, we're calling it. So for HR leaders to take a full assessment of where they are from a technology and process perspective, and then help to understand where they can head towards and how to get there. That's quite exciting. That's something we're calling literally just index. We are properly launching our AI in HR consulting business as well in 2025 primarily to help HR leaders cut through the huge amount of bullshit that is going around in the AI space that far too many vendors are leaning into without even themselves understanding what the hell they're talking about. And another big thing we're launching next year, this has come through customer demand primarily rather than any major innovation. We are launching something that we call Assist, which is in essence outsourced HR ops as a service, but with a hyper focus on kind of HR systems stuff. So rather than medium-sized businesses hiring a HR systems expert and that person then only being busy for 15 hours a week, they can outsource that to us and we'll manage their whole HR systems kind of architecture. So, yeah, those are the kind of biggies. But really, it's about, this year has been about massive growth in the team, 60% growth in revenue, but next year it'll be about really kind of letting all that stuff cement and grow and develop. So, yeah.
Super pleased for you. And the HR Digital Matrix Index sounds really cool. Really looking forward to seeing what that looks like and the
Yeah,
things.
we soft launched it last week, and we've had 20 odd responses so far from a variety of different HR leaders. Next year is when we kind of formally launch it to the market, and we're hoping to push it out ourselves, but also through partners as well. So maybe I'll come and chat to you, Alison, about that.
We should definitely have a chat. Really excited.
Absolutely. Right, 2025. What's next year going to bring us?
Oh, Toby, you go first.
What do you reckon? I'll tell you what, let's keep this simple. One prediction for 2025. What's yours, Toby?
Can I have two?
Yeah, I've got two.
Then.
Selfish immediately. So I'll do one more generally about the market, and I'll do one about Talent Intelligence Collective. So market-wise, I think we're within the TI vendor space, we're going to see a continuation of the acquisitions. I once again wrote about this in the book. Go out and buy it.
Did you write a book, Toby?
Did you not know?
No, I've not heard about that. Wow. You have to send me a copy that's signed on the front cover.
Toby, what was it called and where can people buy it?
Oh, it's Talent Intelligence something, which is a small, unique e-commerce platform. But one of the things I mentioned in there is around the fact that we had this huge TI tech landscape that was ripe for consolidation. And we saw a bit of that this year. Obviously, we mentioned Stratigens and Lightcast. We saw like Cornerstone and Sky Hive and Workday, Hiring Score, Talent Neuron, HR Forecast. Like, there's been loads this year. And obviously, there's an element of that with the market tightening up. And, I assume that a lot of the companies with the VCs and the PEs squeezing and saying, actually, it's not about growth. It's suddenly about profitability. We need to change our goalposts, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we've seen that consolidation start, and I can't see that slowing down. I think that's really going to probably speed up next year. Off the back of, I don't think there's going to be, the predictions aren't great in terms of the labour market. So I think the knock-on effect is teams are going to continually get squeezed, budgets are going to get squeezed. So I think you'll probably see more tech consolidation. That's my one prediction. And then for the Talent Intelligence Collective, I think we're going to keep going from strength to strength. I really want to do more physical meetups. I want to tie in more and see the local communities. Obviously, there's an impact of how that's physically possible. So, I think I'd like to see the TIC partner more with sponsors and partners and vendors, whatever you want to call it, to make some of this happen on the ground a bit more. And I think that all that does is turbocharge the community. At the moment, we're punching above our weight for something that's done off the side of a desk with no real funds and resources. So I'd like to turbocharge that a little bit more without diluting the fact that it's a vendor-neutral platform. We're open to all, et cetera, et cetera. So don't want to change the community in any kind of way, shape or form beyond giving more people more access.
Yeah, you need investment to do that, so we get that. I've got two predictions as well. So one of them we've talked about to death a little bit, but I think there's going to be a continued growth in the use of data on people, places, and companies. Right? Whether that's driving skills-based transformation, whether it's driving talent acquisition, whether it's driving diversity benchmarking. I think that bringing together of internal and external is definitely continuing and going to continue at pace. The other one I've got is actually really interesting, and it's linked to some of the conferences that I've done this year, is that years ago we talked about Singapore having a talent strategy and a skills strategy and how far ahead it was. I've been lucky enough to spend some time in the UAE, and what we're seeing is countries having strategic workforce plans, right? Which means that they're saying, this is where we're going to be, this is what our economy is going to look like, these are the skills that we need to acquire now, but also, and these are the skills that we need to encourage our education establishments to be doing. And I think we're going to start to see a shift geographically between the gap between what is sought and taught, because the companies that are joined up on this stuff are really going to set themselves up, I think, for competitive advantage in the years to come. Just think it might not happen in 2025, that might be a bit quick. But I think we're going to see an increase in countries having longevity around their skills and workforce planning. What's yours, Alan?
Mine. I think I think we'll go beyond the hype of the last 2 years with AI and see proper realistic adoption of it, and start to see some major case studies coming out of how AI is impacting businesses positively, workforces. I'm not going to say positively or negatively. Sit on the fence on that one because it depends on your perspective and depends whether you're directly impacted in a positive or negative way, but majorly, either way, depending on what your perception is. And we'll start to weed out those that are just jumping on the AI gravy train from those that are truly driving innovation. And when I say those, I mean both the people who are talking about this stuff, but also the technology providers who are building this stuff. Those that are building genuine, innovative IP versus those that are just building stuff on top of the work that already OpenAI have done and Anthropic have done and people like that. I think that's the biggie for me. We'll see some major kind of fundamental change around it. People have been experimenting and dabbling and trying stuff out, and on a personal one-to-one level, some of the stuff I've done and you guys have seen and you've experimented with yourself, it's incredible. But actually scaling that up to how does it impact an organisation? How does it impact a business, nationally, globally, whatever it might be? That's where we're going to really start to see some major change. So that's the biggie for me, really.
So 2024 is exciting. Oh, you got another one. Go on.
Yeah, and the other one is I think from a geopolitical perspective, the world will either be, and more importantly, for me, selfishly, the business piece of it will see either steady incremental growth or it'll be a fucking shit show. And there's my swearing for the episode, where we have an absolute roller coaster of ups and downs throughout the year, be it based on certain political leaders being in place in certain parts of the world where it's just insane. So
for the avoidance of doubt, that was not acceptable for any normal child.
You've not met my children, and they're relatively normal. They just know some fantastic swear words.
No, but I agree with you. Right, we're either in for awesome growth or a nightmare. Right,
yeah.
and we've got no idea of knowing which one of those it's going to be. But
but it'll be interesting. It'll keep us on our toes either way.
Exactly.
No, that's great, guys. Wonderful. Listen, we've actually managed to cram pretty much bang on a normal length podcast into this summary one that I think we all expected to be about 25 minutes long.
I think it's quite cool. I think I could keep going, but we're not because it'd be boring.
No, I think now feels like a nice time to say thank you to everyone first.
Yes.
I think from my perspective, a big thank you to all of the podcast listeners, and obviously we wouldn't have a podcast if it wasn't for our guests. I think reflecting on the 5 we had this year, they've all been incredible and all very unique in their own right. I'm hoping we have more than 5 next year. That'd be amazing, and I think we can deliver on that. Anybody you guys want to say a big thank you to?
I want to say thank you to both of you.
Oh,
that sounds a bit fluffy. I love doing this. I love the sharing of ideas. I love the community. I love how relaxed it is. And I love listening to our guests speak. Every day is a school day on this community, and I love it. Thank you.
Even when I swear?
Well, that's less lovely. As swearing goes, that was a bit like, whoa, that's taken us a little bit further than, so not thank you for that bit, but you did correct me earlier.
Well, did you know that
Stratigens, not the other way around?
in a 15 movie, they're allowed one effing.
You can't say it again now, yeah.
Don't say it again.
Yeah, so I'm assuming this is at least rated for 15.
Well, I don't know. I think we might be.
Shouldn't be PG, should it?
It's definitely not a PG, that's for sure. But yeah, so thank you to you two particularly, and everybody who has been part of it.
Likewise. I know this year's been a real interesting one for you, Alison, and I think I'm really pleased that you've come out of it the other side in a really positive place, and it's been an absolute pleasure as ever hosting this with the two of you.
Oh, thank you. T?
Well, once again, I get the shitty end of the stick, don't I? Because you've done a really nice thing. Anyway, obviously, huge thanks to you guys. Like I as everyone knows, I couldn't organise a drink up in a brewery. So I am forever thankful to both of you and the team behind that get this arranged, get it sorted, get it published, get it edited and all that shenanigans, because I couldn't do any of that stuff. So huge thanks to you guys. Obviously, huge thanks to the guests. That this doesn't really work without the people that come on here and tell their story and be open and transparent. And the community we've got is phenomenal. So huge thanks to all of them as always. Without them, it really is just us sitting here bickering on and chatting in a cave. So for me, a huge thanks to the community that keep it all going.
And is there anything you'd like to say to everybody in advance of the festive period, Toby?
Oh, sure. I've just seen you're calling me a lanky Santa in the chat.
I don't know how I build it together.
Just for context, everyone, Toby at the beginning of the show, before we recorded, explained how he got put into an accessible hotel room because he was tall.
To be clear, I am not excessively tall either.
Nor, to be clear, are you Santa? Let's just...
But you do have a beard, so you're halfway there.
I will do my best to grey up my beard more than it already is, ready for Christmas. But no, honestly, for everyone that's listening, I presume we get this published before the festive break. If not, Alan's dropped the ball on that, and welcome to 2025. But if it is before then, happy holidays, everyone. Great festive break, all that shenanigans, and we'll catch you in 2025.
And if it goes out in February, we hope you had a lovely Christmas, and we hope your new year has started well.
Here's to 2025, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yay!
Double yay episode! Thanks for listening. Before you go, I wanted for the last time to remind you about our generous sponsor, Stratigens. Here's that posh chap again, telling you about their fabulous product.
Stratigens gives HR leaders the data they need to transform businesses with the speed and ease required in today's world. If you're ready to make decisions that aren't lengthy, costly, one-dimensional, or based on gut feeling, visit stratigens.com. That's stratigens.com to register for a Wednesday demo drop-in and find out more.